It's been rather cold in Japan lately, and we've even seen some snow. I think on a couple of occasions, actually. I think we first saw some. It was around Christmas time, maybe early January. And there's also been some recently in February. Now, for quite some time, past few months, I've been thinking, it's not very cold, is it? It doesn't really feel like winter, like the kind of winters I'm used to in England. We've seen temperatures like throughout December and January sort of hover around, I don't know, I'd say somewhere between 5 and 10 degrees. I suppose like the highest temperature for most days would have been maybe around 10. And then on the occasional like odd day, it would go up to something like 17, which would just feel really weird. It'd feel like spring was coming or something like that. But still, there was something that just didn't feel that cold. I mean, even if I was looking at like the weather forecast back home, back in England, like what would it be now? Sometimes it was the same temperature as it was in England, the same temperature in Japan. But something just feels so different, and I'm really not sure what it is. Perhaps it's due to the dry air. That is one big difference between the climate over here and the climate in England. In the winters, it's the driest part of the year in Japan, whereas in England it's probably the wettest part of the year. But for whatever reason, it's almost like I don't know, a day where it's 5 degrees over here just does not feel as cold as a day when it's 5 degrees in England. So that could be one reason, or maybe it's just that I'm not spending as much time outside. So I'm not spending enough time outside to start feeling cold. Perhaps that's it. I'm thinking back to when I was living in England, and I suppose the times when I'd noticed the cold the most when I was using the bus to get somewhere, probably to work. I've travelled on the bus to many places. When I used to go to college, I would travel on the bus to college, although in the later half of my... What am I saying, college? Yes, sorry. I was saying the word college. I was actually thinking about university, but it's true. College, I went on the bus to college all the time. Then university, I went on the bus for maybe the first 2 years, and maybe in the last year it was mostly just driving there with my own car. But then there was one job that I did that I sometimes went on the bus even though I had a car, and the reason was, and actually it was to study Japanese. I found like sometimes I'd be driving to my place of work and trying to listen to Japanese in the car. I don't think it was a podcast back then. I wasn't listening to podcasts at that time. My Japanese was a lot worse than it is now. And I think I was just listening to, like, say if you've got like a textbook and it comes with like an audio CD or whatever it comes with nowadays, probably not a CD, probably MP3s or some kind of online download or whatever. So it's just some audio that accompanies the book. I think I was listening to that, like just kept playing it over and over again. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, when I was trying to do this and drive, I just felt it was very dangerous. I mean, it's okay listening to music and driving. I'm okay listening to the radio with someone talking, a podcast in English, fine. But when it was Japanese, I felt like I had to concentrate that extra bit harder to try and understand what was being said, which meant I had less, concentration power available for the road. So that just was not working. So in the end, I decided to go on the bus just so I could study. And actually, going in the car, it only took me about half an hour to get there. But on the bus, it would take an hour. And then they changed the route, so then it took an hour and a half. So I ended up having like 3 hours on this bus to just listen to audio, like 3 hours every day, which was useful, I suppose. But maybe 3 hours was a little bit too much. But anyway, I'm not talking about traveling on the bus, I'm talking about the cold. So the time when I would notice the cold the most has to be when I was waiting for the bus. And waiting for the bus in England is an interesting experience. So in Japan, when I'm waiting for the bus with my wife, sometimes she'll say like, "Ooh, the bus is, we've got 15 minutes to wait for the bus." And that's sort of like a bad thing. And I think 15 minutes? That's nothing. That's no time at all. So when I used to wait for the bus was every half an hour. And that's if it came, which it often didn't. And it would just come at any time it wants to as well. So you could arrive on time, like say 10 minutes early or whatever. And then you'd wait and wait and wait and wait. And then it wouldn't come after 10 minutes. And then you'd wait and think, okay, it's late. And then maybe like an extra 15 minutes would pass and you think, that's quite late. And you wouldn't quite believe it. Like, no, it can't be 20 minutes late. And then it would show up 20 minutes late. So that's if you were lucky. If you were lucky, it was 20 minutes late. Well, I suppose if you were lucky, it was on time. But I meant, like, if you were very unlucky, it wasn't 20 minutes late. It just wasn't anywhere. For some reason that I still can't understand, some buses would just disappear. And you just, instead of waiting half an hour for the bus, you'd wait over an hour for the bus to appear. And the next bus that came along would be very, very full indeed, and you wouldn't have anywhere to sit. And then on the odd occasion, so it would happen rarely, but on the odd occasion, there would be 2 buses missing, and you'd wait there for like an hour and a half. So as you can imagine, on a cold day, it's really cold because you're just standing still, and you've got nothing to do to generate. You're not doing anything to generate any heat, so you really feel the cold. So there's one reason. Perhaps it's because I spent more time outside and maybe I felt the cold more. But then again, I'm not sure, because I remember I don't know, you'd be in a warm building and go outside, or in a warm car and go outside. And as soon as you get outside, it's almost like this cold would sort of hit your face. It's like this biting, sharp feeling on your face. That was very unpleasant, and I very much didn't enjoy. But I haven't felt that over here. I've almost felt it over here. When it snowed, on the occasions it snowed and I went outside, I could feel this cold in the air, this real cold. Like, oh, yes, this is a bit more like the cold that I used to remember. So even though the temperature is exactly the same, or sometimes it's gone into like minus figures over here, which would feel amazingly cold in England if I was to take a walk, for some reason, it still doesn't feel like it's the real temperature. Like when I'm looking at a weather forecast and it's saying outside is -2, and I go outside, I just think, this isn't really -2, is it? So yeah, the only thing I can think of is it's that difference between the the humidity, the moisture in the air. Somehow being drier when it's cold doesn't feel as cold as when it's cold and moist. I don't know the reason for that. There must be some reason. There's 2 possibilities. Either this is the reason, and you can figure out why it is. It will say somewhere on some website, I'm sure, or I'm just completely misremembering things. So my memory isn't working properly. It actually does feel as cold in England as it does feel over here. But I trust my memory, so I think there's actually something to do with the moisture in the air. Although actually there's another thing that, come to think of it, there's another thing that I haven't really taken into account, and that's the sun. I mean, I do know, like, when the sun is out over here, it's the strength of it is unbelievable, and I haven't quite worked out why that is, but it definitely feels hotter than English sun. It's probably not. I think it's probably the same. It is the same sun after all. But the winters over here are, like I've said, very, very dry, and there are almost no clouds. Like almost every day, it's just blue sky. So obviously you're getting a lot of sun on those days, and it doesn't feel that cold. Whereas in England, in the winters, almost every day is just cloud and rain, and you don't see any sun for a long time. But even so, I'm thinking back to the days I spend over here in the winter that do have cloud, those rare occasions, and it still just doesn't feel as cold. But I suppose what I'm trying to say is, I don't like the cold, and at the same time I miss it. How weird is that? I really didn't like going outside and just getting that like biting feeling on your face and your fingers just feeling numb. But at the same time, there is something about it that I miss it, that makes me miss it. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just familiarity, something I'm used to. Like when, ooh, it is winter, it should feel like this. Maybe it's that kind of thing. Or I suppose one thing that I did like about it being, feeling so cold is it just felt even nicer when you went indoors, especially if you went back to your own home and your home was warm. You'd be out in the cold, you'd be just thinking, oh, I just can't wait to get back home, get somewhere warm again. You'd go home and it would just feel, so nice and cozy at home. So I don't have that feeling quite as much over here because, like I said, doesn't feel as cold to me for some reason. But as on those couple of occasions where it did snow recently, it reminded me of it. That's why I ended up recording this podcast. I was just thinking about it, like, oh, it feels a bit colder now, doesn't it? Sort of like the cold I used to remember. Anyway, that is enough for today. So until next time, bye-bye.